Today we have a question dealing with variables and controls in a scientific experiment. So go ahead, scroll down just a little bit, and try this question, number 6. This question comes from a research summaries passage. This is one of those typically 6-question passages that you're going to see in the ACT science section. And in these research summaries passages, when you've got multiple experiments, multiple studies, typically the questions, sometimes you can get simple questions based on the tables and the figures, but a lot of times you get questions based on experimental design, how the experiment has been set up, and what conclusions we can draw from that experiment. So let's take a look at number 6. It deals with exactly this issue. The experimental designs of study 2 and study 1 differed in that study 2 did what? So we need to figure out what study 2 did differently compared to what study 1 did. And if we look at the choices, we give a little bit of a peek, we see that the choices are all about what variables or factors are either held constant or are varied. And this gets to the core of what I had titled the video, variables and controls. The key idea in a scientific experiment is you need to figure out, if you're trying to see what factors affect some change, some outcome, you need to make sure that, as much as you can, every other factor that could affect the outcome is held constant from trial to trial. And so that the only thing that you're varying is the one factor that you're trying to determine whether or not it has an effect on the outcome. So when you're doing these studies, you're going to keep everything the same from trial to trial to trial, except for one thing which you vary. And typically one thing, although you can have more than one variable as well. But in any event, you want to keep those things constant and also make sure that the thing you're testing is being changed in a systematic way. And that's what this question is really testing, is what are the variables, what are the controls? So let's look at study 1. I mean, the first thing we see from the intro is that a student performed 2 studies to investigate the factors that affect the germination of these seeds. So exactly the kind of experiment you'd expect. So the peony seeds were placed in dry containers. Some of the containers were stored at 5 degrees Celsius for either 4, 6, 8, or 10 weeks. The temperature and time periods were defined as the storage temperature and storage period, respectively. The peony seeds were divided evenly so that there were 20 sets of 25 seeds. 20 Petri dishes were then prepared. Each contained damp paper. Each set of seeds was placed in a separate Petri dish. Each Petri dish was maintained at one of 4 temperatures for 30 days. The temperature and time periods were defined as the germination temperature and the germination period, respectively. Table 1 shows the number of seeds that germinated in each dish. So what do we see here? What are we varying? Well, it looks like we're varying this storage period, different number of weeks of storage. And we're also varying the germination temperature in these cases, right? So let's go ahead. Germination temperature is varying, right? You can see in the table it's varying from 13 to 28. And also the storage period is varying in study 1. What's being held constant? Well, this temperature is the same for all the trials. It's 5 degrees. So the storage temperature is constant. And what else is constant? Well, 20 sets of 25 seeds. I mean, they're all divided into that number of seeds. 20 dishes. 30 days looks like they're all held for 30 days, so that's not really changing. But as we saw before, the germination temperature is changing. So the germination period is 30 days for all of them, but the temperature, as we saw, is changing. So let's look at study 2 and see how it compares. Peony seeds were placed in dry containers. The containers were stored at various temperatures for 10 weeks. So notice here, in the previous question, the weeks were varying for the storage. Here, the weeks are not varying. So this could be a difference. Notice in the previous question, the previous study, it was held at a storage temperature of 5 degrees Celsius, whereas here, they're being held at various temperatures. So that's perhaps a change. Notice this is the same, 20 sets of 25 seeds, 20 Petri dishes, damp paper, placed in a deep Petri dish. Everything here is the same. They're maintained at one of 4 temperatures for 30 days. This is also the same. Notice this matches exactly what was done in the previous experiment. So notice that what's differing is this information here, the storage temperature and the storage period. So let's go to the choices. What did study 2? Study 2, storage temperature was held constant? No. Notice we see in study 2, the storage temperature is various temperatures. In study 1, the storage temperature was held constant, but it's not true for study 2, so we'll get rid of F. Storage time was held constant. Yes. Notice here in study 2, the storage time is 10 weeks, whereas in study 1, it's different. It was varied. So we like G. Germination temperature was varied. Notice in both cases, the germination temperature, which is this part of the table, which is this data, described in the second paragraph of each study, in both of them it's varied. So study 2 does not differ from study 1 in that regard. Germination time was varied. Again, both of them had various, but for both of them, they were at 30 days of germination time. So that's the same for both, wasn't even varied for both. So the choice that works best is choice G. To learn more about Reason Prep's SAT, SAT subject test, and ACT video courses, go to reasonprep.com/enroll, and you can find the link in the description below the video.